Hello, my happy crumpin' wargamers. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about what size squads to be taking for the Orcs. We'll also be following this up for the Custodes and a few other armies as well, as is per usual. Big shout out to all of my members, all my grots and gits in the Discord. You guys who are supporting me, you are the reason why I'm putting these videos out, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also not slumping, so super big shout out to members of the Adeptus Custodes, the few, the elite, the coaching clients. You guys freaking rock. And we've been getting some pretty darn good results from our clients recently. So if you guys are interested in coaching or just becoming a member of the Discord and supporting me, you can find the information at my Ko-Fi link, which is down in the description below. But let's pop right into the episode. So we have a big question we got to answer. And the Orc, the inquisitive Orc here says he wants to know who put the alphabet in alphabetical order. Because Orcs got to think. So here's the big question, guys. We got to figure out what size of these squads are we taking. Because we have a huge index with a lot of really good troops. But we got to figure out what size squads. Do we take 5-mans? Do we take 10-mans? Do we take 20-mans? That's a big question. And there's always there's a big difference. There's a huge difference between a minimum size squad and a maximum size squad. And it's not just how hard they hit. There's a lot of other differences you have to think about as well. So what's the point of the unit, right? And these are the questions you have to answer yourself when we're answering these. And I'm going to go through all of the units in the Orcs. there's a few I might gloss over just because there's no point. But I'm going to be going through basically all the big ones. So what is the point of the unit? You have to ask your question. Is this unit's purpose to be a killing unit? Is this unit's purpose to not die? So then the different sizes of the unit, do they do the same thing? Does a 5-man unit of knobs do the same thing as a 10-man unit of knobs, just on a lower scale? Well, we have to ask ourselves these questions. How much are we giving up to blast? Once we take our unit from a 5-man to a 10-man, we're giving up more blast. Or, a 10-man to a 20-man, we're giving up significantly more blast. Deployment/deliverability. How are we going to deploy a 3-man unit of Squig Hogs versus a 6-man unit of Squig Hogs? Because it is different. It changes the way you use the unit. It's not just, oh, we get more attacks. Oh, we have more wounds. No. They move up the field differently, and they have to be deployed differently. So that's really important. How are you going to deliver a 6-man unit of knobs, of mega knobs, versus how are you delivering a 2-man unit of mega knobs? What is the defensive profile? Can an army reliably chew through 3 Squig Hog boys versus can it reliably chew through 6? It's a big different question. And obviously, killiness matters as well. So let's just jump right into it with one of the best units in the Codex, the Beast Snagas. The humble Beast Snaga boys. We freaking love these guys. They rock. You love them. I love them. It's great. So, in my opinion, 10-mans seem optimal. And just a little aside, a little bonus information here for you. I really enjoy Follow Me Lads or Cunning But Brutal on these boys. I pretty much always put Follow Me Lads on my Beast Snagas because I tend to use this squad outside of the WoW. That's just a little bonus, but that's not germane to the subject today. So 20-mans are very usable. However, they tend to give up blast really badly, and they become almost impossible to hide, which means if you are running a 20-man, you're almost certainly taking a battle wagon, which is another really big tax, because there's basically no way you're going to put a 20-man in your deployment zone. So then you have to think about the math. So a 10-man with a beast boss, which is cheaper than a 20-man, is already about 90% as killy as a 20-man, and it's significantly more killy against troops like vehicles, right? Vehicles are monsters, because of that beast boss's dev wounds and anti-monster vehicle 4-up. So it's about 90% as killy as a 20-man, and it's a heck of a lot easier to move. You can put this squad inside a truck, or honestly, you can deploy them on the battlefield, or as what I sometimes do, you can even strat reserve these guys, because don't forget, you can use stratagems on units in strat reserve. So I've been known to use here we go, for a plus 2 inches of charge out of strat reserve. So you get that sweet 7-inch charge out of strat reserve with these guys. So then, how do we run the 20-man if we want to run the 20-man? Well, it's likely to be run with the Pain Boss, right? You're probably not running a 20-man with the Beast Boss. It's possible that you do. It's just fairly unlikely. So the 20-man, however, you get that sweet 5-up Feel No Pain when you're running with the Pain Boss. Now, suddenly this unit becomes actually a chore to chew through because they all have the 5-up armor. When you have a 20-man squad, you're going to have cover somewhere. It's going to give you that sweet 4-up armor, followed by a 5-up Feel No Pain on all of these, and you can use 1 CP to make the whole unit -1 to be wounded. Suddenly that unit can actually soak up quite a bit of firepower, and it's actually big enough to really block the entire board. I mean, you can string that unit out to essentially lock an opponent in their deployment zone if you can move far enough with it. So there is play for the 20-man with the Pain Boss. However, I do think the 10-man seems optimal. The 10-man with the Beast Boss is pretty much unquestionably the gold standard for this unit. Let's move on to the Orc Boys. Orc Boys have a very similar conversation, but it is a little nuanced. So I would say that the 20-man Orc Boy squad actually tends to have a lot more flexibility and a little bit more play than the 20-man Snaga squad, because the Orc Boys get 2 leaders. So you could be running these with the War Boss and the Wa banner for a double Wa. So you can give them the advance and charge and the 9 attacks with a War Boss in turn 1, and then you can do it again in turn 2 when you call your natural Wa. Or, to turn 2 and turn 3 when you call your natural Wa. Another option, you could be running the War Boss and the Weird Boy for first turn teleport shenanigans. You can teleport them and string them out to block the entire opponent's deployment zone, or you can try to deep strike them in for that sweet, sweet charge if you're going for it. And remember, you can use Here We Go on this, right? Because that Weird Boy, his ability is used in the movement phase. And since you start on the board, you can use Here We Go first. They're not coming from deep strike. So Here We Go is awesome. Then we have the 10-man. So the 10-man, they're just cheaper T5 bodies than the Beast Snagas. Sometimes that's useful. Sometimes you don't have the 20 points for the Beast Snagas, so you want to go for the Orc Boys. Personally, if I'm not putting a Beast Boss with my Beast Snagas, I'm taking Orc Boys. That's just kind of the way I've been running it so far. Now, a 10-man with a Weird Boy can actually start in a truck, and they get to still perform the turn 1 teleport shenanigans without really exposing them. This is one of the arguments for how you want to run these boys, because a 20-man squad is difficult to deploy. And if you go second, a lot of times, if your opponent has indirect with blast, say you're fighting guard, that squad is done. So when you're running with the Weird Boy, you can still start them in that truck for that relative safety if you go second, and you can still try to perform your deep strike shenanigans. So Orc Boys have a little bit more flexibility. I see a good argument either way, but they do serve a slightly different purpose based off of whether it's the 10 or the 20-man squad. Let's talk about the Gretchen. We love the freaking Gretchen. I love Gretchen. You love Gretchen. Everybody loves Gretchen. So you can either take them in an 11-man or a 22-man. Back in the day of Gretchen being T5 in Melee, at the beginning of 10th edition, the 22-man was an auto include for me, and I was running them with Zodgrod. They were Zodgrods, so they were doing their scout move turn 1. They were advancing and charging during the Wa. They were tying up an entire enemy army really, really easily, and I absolutely loved this unit. However, that is no longer the case. They're no longer T5 in Melee, so that strategy has decreased in power a little bit. Not 100% in power, just decreased in power quite a little bit. So 11 is like perfect for move blocking / holding the home field objectives, screening your deployment zone, and it's only 40 points. It's basically the perfect ideal unit to hold your backfield. Then a 22-man unit still seems to be relegated to being Zodgrots. It still actually works quite well, because that whole unit of Gretchen is still -1 to be wounded and +1 to hit. You get that huge scout move. If you want to call the Wa, they can advance and charge. They get extra movement. That unit of Grots is a big problem. However, it does give up a ton on blast, and if you go second, it's probably just going to get chewed up. So it's the 22-man still has some legs, but you just don't see it very often competitively because it relies on too many factors. Now, the 11-man with Zodgrod can still fit in a truck, and that will give you turn 1 scout movement shenanigans, where you can scout move that truck, you can get out, you can move really, really far turn 1 with just that 11-man, and I actually tend to think that serves the purpose better. So in my opinion, I believe it should basically always be the 11-man Gretchen, although there are some skew builds that might want to take the 22-man. Let's just talk about some units I'm not really going to cover in depth, because honestly, Ludas are just awful, and I don't take them in any capacity. Tank Bustas, man, they're just going to need a rework or a different detachment. The fact that one unit has to have the pistols and only 2 can get the rocket launchers and then one has to, it's just a mess. Killicons are just, there's not a place in the meta for them right now. Burner Boys, we'll just do a really brief mention for them. You can have a 5-man, and they're not bad for a deep strike overwatch protection. So let's say you want to leave them in your backfield with your Gretchen so that you can deep strike any, coming in Eldar, try to get a little overwatch on them. That's reasonable. You can have 10 of them if you want to run a flaming truck, which is always hilarious, because now that trucks shoot the flamers, they can shoot them into melee if the truck's stuck in melee. It's actually not the worst strategy, but it's a little too expensive for me, so I don't do it. But if you wanted to, that's how you would run it. Let's get back into the things that we're really talking about. Knobs. This is a big, big question. So you can be running a 5-man or a 10-man. Just as a bonus, you can typically look at running either Follow Me Lads or Cut 'Em Up Brutal with the squad, but you don't have to. Actually, I I run my knobs without a enhancement right now. So typically they're basically always going to have a war boss no matter what, because the war boss gives them +1 to hit and -1 to be wound. It's super strong. The pain boy is kind of cool for giving them that 5-up feel no pain. But then they lose the +1 to hit, they lose the -1 to be wounded. And then same thing with Mad Doc Grotznick. I kind of like the idea of Mad Doc, but it's like one of the cool things about knobs is that they're always -1 to be wounded. So you can always save your Artist Nails for a different unit that's not your knobs. It's just so powerful. So I think you're basically always taking War Boss anyway. But that's not the point of this conversation. So what do you use a 10-man for? The 10-mans, they are basically always going to be full Power Claws, and they're super useful for pushing attacks through even the hardest to kill blocks. So you run these guys into the massive Terminator brick. You run these dudes into the vehicle that you're just not quite, that's going to be like T11, and you just need those 5s with AP2 to get through. So Dreadnoughts a lot of times, right? This is what the squad is for. They go to murder the thing that you must have AP2 into. And honestly, a lot of times they just die in the clapback. But that's okay, because at that point they kill the thing that you have to have killed, because we don't have much AP2 in the codex. So you kind of need these knobs in order to do that job. Now, a 5-man can be a little bit different, and I like both. Both of these are very viable. 5-mans, you can go claws or you can go big choppas. I've actually found a lot of success running big choppas on my 5-man. So one of the things that my 5-man does is I run them out with a war boss. The war boss keeps the power claw, obviously. And I send these guys outside of the WA to be a surgical strike squad that's still going to run through a lot of your heavy hitters. They're still going to run through Blade Guard. They're still going to run through your aggressors. They're still going to run through a lot of these other units. And it's a little more flexible to be able to use, because they're a little less points intensive. So it's nice to be able to use them outside of the WA. So I do like actually big choppas on my 5-mans, but power claws are still totally a good option as well. But that's the way you run these. It's the 10-man or the 5-man. 10-man is always going to be claws. 5-man, there's an argument you can go either way, claws or big choppas. Squighog Riders. This is one that my members are actually requesting a bunch. So Squighog Riders, there's a huge question. So do you run Edwap as Skill Choppa? Or is it Cunning but Brutal and Follow Me Lads? Well, it's always going to be Edwap as Skill Choppa. Done. And then if you're taking duplicates, Cunning but Brutal and Follow Me Lads are big options. So you can run these in either 3-mans or 6-mans. The 6 is going to be taking that Smash and Knob, which is a huge damage dealer, okay? When you have that Smash and Knob, he's going to be adding +1 to hit to the whole squad. And then his Dev Wounds from the Edwap plus Kill Choppa is always going to proc on 4s or even 3s during the WA. So that unit just annihilates thing. Please do not sleep on the ability to throw 2 Squig Bombs at once. Also a very, very critical and important skill. Then we look at our 3-mans. These dudes are easier to move, and you can still justify a Smash and Up because they're only like 60 points. I really like these 3-mans for my rapid ingress units. The 6-mans I start on the board. Now, the 6-mans can start rapid ingress, but I tend to find they're a little bit too easy to screen. I know there's a bunch of other high-level Orc players that might argue with me on this one, and that's okay. They don't have bad opinions. This is just my opinion. So I start my 6-man on the board because there's basically very few armies that can just kill the 6-man in shooting. So maybe they'll kill 3 with a bunch of shooting, and then I'm going to end up moving that 6-man up the board. By the time they get into melee, they're still going to have 3 and the Smash and Knob left, so they're going to be connecting. I don't need the full 6-man to connect. I really only need that Smash and Knob and 1 or 2 others to connect into the units I'm sending them into. So I start the 6-man on the board, and I start the 3-mans typically in rapid ingress or so. Just as an aside, I also see very little value to the 3-man without a leader. So I know a bunch of people are running these right now. I know the guy who does $1 Billion Clown Farm, and he's a good player. He's got good opinions. I have nothing negative to say about him, but he's taking these 3-mans without a leader. I don't like that. I think that's a mistake because they lose a ton of hitting power. A 3-man is honestly not that hard to kill. And at that point, they're kind of relegated to holding objectives and things like that, at which point I'm running War Bikers because War Bikers are cheaper, they're faster, they're not quite as tough, but they're basically as tough, and they're going to get to do everything that you want the 3-man to do for significantly cheaper amounts of points. So if I'm doing a 3-man without a leader, I'm just going to run them as War Bikers. Stormboys, you take 5s or 10s. This is a super easy question. It's always 5-mans. You don't take 10-man Stormboys unless you're just playing, scenarios. But if you're playing competitive, you take 5-mans. They are not a damage dealer. They're not meant to kill things. Now, the 5-man is still enough to clear like an infiltrating unit of guardsmen equivalent, so you can still send them out to do that. And it's a super, super easy deep strike unit for giving up secondaries and grabbing objectives. The 10-man barely does it more than killing an infiltrating guard unit, so they don't hit much harder at all, and they become very, very easy to deep strike denial, so I always recommend the 5-mans. Just got a few more for you guys here, and then we'll finish up. War Bikers, we got a 3 or a 6-man. The 3-mans are super epic for charging turn 1 secondaries, or for scoring turn 1 secondaries, move blocking, and charging your infiltrating units. And that's just great. Then we go into the 6-mans. They become significantly harder to deploy. You can't really hide them as well, and they don't hit that significantly harder. So for me, the 3-mans seem to be legends here. It's the 70 points for the 3-man is just great. I don't need to upgrade them to a 6-man for really any purpose. They're still move blocking. They're still scoring secondaries. It's freaking awesome. Looking at the Mega Knobs, you can run them in 2s, 3s, 5s, and 6s. They are very susceptible to movement nerfs. It's no secret I don't like Mega Knobs. I know some people do. For me, they tend to be a non-starter. However, let's talk about how we would run them. 2s are very solid choices for resisting indirect, scoring secondaries, and holding backfield objectives. 3-mans seem useless. I just don't see why you're running a 3-man. They don't hit hard enough. It's just more expensive than a 2-man. 5 to 6 are going to be your midfield bullies. Their job is to not die. Remember, Mega Knobs are not for killing. Those are what your knobs are for. Mega Knobs are for not dying. And sadly, they don't have any defenses to devastating wounds or mortal wounds, so that can be a little bit challenging. But if you're running these days, I'm seeing them as a 2 or a 5/6/6-man. I think the 5-man with the big mech and mega armor is a decent choice because then you can be resurrecting one a turn. But their OC is very low, so they're not great at holding points either. They're an iffy choice. I think 2-mans is the way I would probably run them if I ran them, but I don't. But a 5-man seems reasonable as well. I would never take them in a 3-man. And then lastly for today, we're going to talk about our flash kits. It's a 5 or a 10-man. And to be honest with you, as much as I love the flash kits models, the only way I'm taking them is with Badrock, in which case it's a 10-man. You're never taking a 5-man with Badrock, so it's a 10-man. And at that point in time, this becomes an actual devastating unit that can be game defining. And don't forget, you're going to need a truck for deployment. So there's basically no point in ever taking flash kits without Badrock because they lose like 70% damage, and they're just easy to kill bodies. So it's a 10-man with Badrock. All right, guys, so this was it. This is how we're going to be running. This is my recommendations, at least, for how you're going to be running your Orc units. Are you taking them in 5-mans, 10-mans, etc., etc.? If you like this, please drop me a like and a subscription. If you have a disagreement with me, go ahead and put it in the comments. I tend to respond to basically all comments, and I love having these discussions with you guys. Maybe you've thought about something I haven't. So let me know. Give me a little bit of feedback. I hope to see you all in the Discord or on the coaching clients service. Remember, my Ko-Fi link is down below, and I will talk to you in the next video. Until next time, happy crumpin', you beautiful Gratzengets. All right, bye-bye.